Patriots get the win yesterday, and shortly thereafter, so do the Celtics. It was not a great start. I think they were down 11 at halftime. At one point, they were down 17. But the Celtics come back to beat the hapless Bucks. I mean, you want to talk about an organization in flux with the Chicago Bears. How about the Milwaukee Bucks? Man, they were 30-13 with Griffin last year. They can him, and they're like below 500 with Doc since then. Poor Doc, man. I don't want to keep pouring on Doc, piling on him. You know what I mean? I like Doc. He won a championship with the Celtics. And the more I watch, I'm like, the more he's coaching himself out of the Hall of Fame. You know, just about every coach who coaches an NBA championship team gets in the Hall of Fame. And if Doc had retired like before Philly, I think he gets there. I think time remembers him well. And, you know, his Clippers teams were always good. You know what I mean? Like they didn't win the championship. I don't even think they made a conference finals. But to be that good year in, year out in the NBA gets you into the Basketball Hall of Fame. They don't have these great rigid standards, okay? They don't. And so he would have been there. And now, whatever this is, 3 years later, 4 years later, from whenever he took over from Philly, I think people are going to remember the memes. I think they're going to remember how many times he blew a series lead, 3-1, 3-2. And they're going to remember this Bucks thing if it really, I mean, if it continues to go this way, not even if the shit hits the fan, like the stench is being thrown around the room. The shit is hitting the fan. They're 2-8. They're terrible. And they've got 2 Hall of Famers. And I know we've talked about it before, but that Drew Holiday trade is going to go down as maybe the worst in Bucks history if things continue to go the way they are. If the Bucks continue to go south and the Celtics continue ascending, they've already won a title. But I always said about that, this is not a hindsight's 2020 kind of case. When the Bucks traded for Dame Lillard and sent Drew to Portland, there was no doubt in anyone's mind that he was going to end up with an Eastern Conference contender. The 2 teams, or 3 teams, I should say, 3 teams were looking for a point guard. They were all in the Eastern Conference. The 3 teams that would be looking for a borderline Hall of Fame point guard to round out their team for a championship contender, to be a championship contender, were all in the Eastern Conference. It was Miami, it was Philadelphia, and it was the Boston Celtics. So you knew playing that game, Milwaukee, that if you sent Drew Holiday to a team like Portland that was going to try to flip him right away, that he was going to end up back in your conference with one of the teams you were competing against. You felt, I guess, that was a calculated risk to bring in a Hall of Famer in Dame Lillard. The Celtics get Drew Holiday. They immediately win the title, and they completely separate themselves from you. And to me, it's hilarious. And Drew made some big-time plays at the end of that game, like winning plays, coming up with steals, stealing possessions. And I'm like, nobody in that arena can be surprised. They saw this for years. They saw them win a championship off this guy. Like, he complimented Giannis perfectly. And you let him go to bring in another guy who airballed 4 threes yesterday and helped drop your overall defensive rating by 19 spots in 1 year. No shade. Dame Lillard's a Hall of Famer. He's a great player. But that acquisition has no doubt hurt your team. No doubt. And it's bad enough that it's tough to get these guys on the court at the same time because they get injured. They play the game hard and they get injured. And Dame's old and Giannis is getting there. And the way he plays, you're going to get injured. But you've got them on the floor for this whole first 10 games of the season. And they're 2-8. And they've blown double-digit leads against the Celtics both times. And really where the turning point came in this game was when Giannis had a little playful exchange with Jaylen Brown.
This is Giannis after the offensive foul call. Whoop.
Yep.
Psych.
You all right, man? Yeah, okay, psych. But it's indicative of Giannis still being able to have a good time after. I would have got him the second time. Yep, psych again. And look at Jaylen Brown. He ain't smiling.
Like, the game changes after that. The Bucks were feeling good about themselves, up double digits in the first half, and then that happens, and the Celtics don't look back. The Celtics, do they take it too seriously? Maybe. Because I chose to use that clip to show that Giannis did go for the second handshake, okay? Like, it was just, I don't know, it's kind of funny to see that in an NBA game. But Jaylen Brown did not think it was funny. And the Celtics also did not think it was funny. And they made it their mission after that game to completely turn it around, come back from that 17-point deficit, and win the game rather comfortably, actually, by like 6 points at the end of it. This team is not to be fucked with. Okay? I think they have made that abundantly clear. And if you didn't know that already, after the win, Jaylen Brown made it abundantly clear after the game.
With the offensive foul, and then he like fake shook your hand and pulled it back. Are you laughing at that? Do you think it's funny, or does that kind of piss you off?
Giannis is a child. You know, I'm just focused on helping my team get a win, and that's what we did tonight.
Giannis is a child. He was not messing around. This team is not to be fucked with. And they proved that once again with this comeback. Like, you want to say it's cheesy, it's corny, it was just a joke, get over it. I actually understand that because it is pretty jokey. But what this showed from a Celtics fan standpoint is they're going to take all of this personal. And that's a good thing. They took some shit personally last year and they won the NBA title. And we talked about it in this offseason. A lot of other teams are thinking that the Celtics are manufacturing disrespect with the whole Steve Kerr thing and the Olympics, and I'll get over it. And whether they are or they aren't, if they're going to use it as fuel, I'm here for it. If they're not going to get bogged down in it, which I don't think they did in this game, they went out and took it to those two Hall of Famers and beat them down the stretch, mainly thanks to Derek White. Thank you for everything that you do, Derek White. 2 things to do today. Thank a veteran, and if you see Derek White, thank him too. Maybe not as, profusely, but thank them both. It's just people were worried about the Bucks coming into this season. I think they're better than what they are at 2-8, but I am not worried about the Bucks. I'm not. They cannot defend enough to beat the Celtics in a 7-game series. In fact, they won't even get to the Celtics unless it's the second round. If you think that's going to be a conference finals matchup, you're in banana land, okay? No chance. They are not getting past the Knicks, who have had their own struggles right now, and I doubt they could even get past Miami, who are having their struggles, but they always do at some point, and they're cockroaches. They just keep living. They might struggle with Philadelphia if Embiid's healthy, but obviously that's a huge if. I don't think they're as good as those teams, and of course they're not as good as Cleveland or Indiana or Boston. They're not close. They're better than 2-8 probably, but they're not close to that. And you want to talk about a championship window closing. It's closing pretty tight right there. Celtics get the win and prove that they will not be fucked with this year. I'm here for it, man. Because you know what? There also is some beef there with Giannis. There's just, and I don't know that it's any one thing, but they're kind of just sick of Giannis. They had the 2022 series where Giannis was great, and the Celtics felt he got a much kinder whistle than their team did. And it was tough to argue watching that series every minute of it. It's tough to argue, but Giannis is a superstar, man. He's still probably one of the 5 or 6 best players in the game. He's got a couple MVPs. He's won an NBA title. He kind of deserves that. Earned it. But now when he's coming down on Jason Tatum and Tatum's rolling his ankle on what is a clear landing spot foul, which I don't agree should be a flagrant, but is a flagrant every time, and Giannis doesn't get that call and the Celtics have to waste a timeout to get Jason Tatum off the court, they probably should be pissed. And in fact, Tatum said after the game, he said, the shit's annoying. It's getting old that we're not getting these calls and Giannis is still. So I get that. There's some beef there. And it goes back to probably when he dunked on Al Horford and was chirping at him like the most respected guy in the league, Al Horford. And Horford kind of took note of it, came down a few possessions later, dunked all over Giannis's head, and got a flagrant because it was such a flagrant dunk. Got a flagrant foul because of it. So it's all still there. It's all still there. But Giannis is a child. Jaylen Brown made his mind clear there. I mean, he made his stance clear on what he thinks of Giannis. Oh, this would be a fun rivalry if the Bucks could keep up. If the Bucks were actually a contender in the Eastern Conference, this rivalry would be a ton of fun. We thought it was going to be that way for years after that 22 series, but the Bucks have exited stage right in terms of NBA title contention pretty swiftly thereafter.
We are Rogue Media Sports.